Picture Book Summit. Picture Book Summit.
All right, welcome back to the Picture Book Summit podcast. Today we have part 2 of our Caldecott conversation. We're super excited about the books this year. Part 1, we talked about Honor Books Our Lake and Every Monday Mabel. Just as a quick reminder, the Caldecotts are an illustration award, and so we'll be talking about how the text and the illustration interact, as well as highlights from the illustrations, but we'll also put a link to Emma's conversation about how the awards are chosen, the guidelines for the Caldecott committee. So you can find out a little bit more about why these particular books were chosen this year. In part 2 today, we'll be talking about Honor Books Sundust by Zeke Peña, Stalagmite and Stalactite by Drew Beckmeyer, and the winning book this year of the Caldecott Medal, Fireworks by Matthew Burgess and Cátia Chien. So Emma, why don't you start us off with Sundust today?
All right. Well, if you listen to the part 1 video, you will have heard us talk about the color pink and how dominant it is this year in all of these books. And what's
not just pink, hot pink.
Not just pink, but hot pink. And what's particularly interesting, this is probably the hot pinkest or the hottest pink of the choices. And what's interesting here in this book, Sundust, this is a book about home, about place. It celebrates life in the desert, pretty much, and the love-hate relationship that those who live in the desert have with the sun, how they hold the sun in their skin, and they're just essentially their relationship to the sun. And what the pink represents in this book is, in fact, the title, which is Sundust. It is the energy that comes from the sun. The pink is the energy from the sun. It is a kind of an electrical charge that travels throughout the book and touches things along the way. And it's also a book about childhood and the childlike capacity for wonder and for taking the very mundane and running into the imagination. I would say those are the primary themes of the book. I just want to start by talking about this pink because what is particularly interesting, what I learned about this is that this was Zeke Peña's debut as an author-illustrator. He is an illustrator. Perhaps unsurprisingly, if you notice, the quality of the illustrations have a kind of a graphic novel, comic book feel to them.
Absolutely.
That is his background. He has a background in comics and in graphic novels. He's, very much a fan of that kind of art and of hip hop. So that energy comes through in his art, spoken word poetry, hip hop, comics especially. And
there's even panels on some of the pages.
There's even panels in this book. And what's interesting about this book is that he managed to persuade the art director and the editor to use a 5th color in the publishing of this book. So you may or may not be aware that in publishing, traditionally picture books are published in 4 colors. Just as we have 4 colors in our printers, you may be familiar with the CMYB, cyan, magenta, blue, right, yellow and blue. So Zeke actually managed to persuade them to use this hot pink as a 5th color in the printing process. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. And
you should have reached out to Pantone, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. So this is very much a kind of a fantastical book. As I said, the Sundust represents this sort of trail of energy that travels through the book. It starts out following 2 Latinx siblings who live in the Sonoran Desert, and they climb the rock wall that's at the bottom of their garden, and they travel beyond that into the desert. And there's very much a kind of a gritty, almost, it's not urban, but it's, construction, and you get a real sense. There's barbed wire, there are construction vehicles, there's turned up dirt. You get a sense of the destruction of adults basically wreaking havoc on the environment in the desert and destroying the desert. And he specifically refers to this as a border wall town. So one might imagine that perhaps this construction is in the process of creating or continuing this border wall, which makes the book particularly timely and interesting.
That's what I thought, Emma, because, sorry to interrupt you, but because on this page where we have the barbed wire, there are
Yeah.
these posts here
Yeah,
that look
exactly.
like it's going to
It's
be,
under construction.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, the children see a little spark of sundust and they decide to follow it. And throughout the book, they follow it deeper, further and further away from humanity, deeper and deeper into the desert. And as they get deeper into the desert, they notice the ways in which the sundust connects with nature. It's in the eyes of the bird, it's in the shell of the turtle, but more specifically, it's in this thread of energy that runs throughout the story as they travel, to the point where they really start to get a sense of time and history and evolution in this desert, how the rocks remember everything from the time before.
I love that page.
Yeah, it's a really interesting journey. And as the energy of the sundust, probably the heat of the sun, and the youthful spirit of their imaginations takes over, they begin to feel, he says, we feel sun's tough love on our skin. The desert heat makes us who we are, hot, cooked, tostaditos, morenas, beautifully dark doradites or doradites. I'm not sure. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. So he's really leaning into the cultural heritage here and, feeling the sun baking the desert until the skies open up and the rain pours down and the river spirit wakes up with the rain. And from here, we begin to move into fantasy and we begin to move into the realm of the imagination. The children begin to commune with nature in a sense. They sit like rocks and listen. They're calmed by the shade and the smell of the rain. And then they're visited by a hummingbird, referred to here as a colibri, who falls from the sky and then becomes larger than life and gives them a ride up into the sky. And imagination takes over. They travel into space, past the Earth's atmosphere, beyond the clouds, and for a moment, we shine with everyone who came before us. And that's probably my favorite page in the book, where we see this silhouette of these two children floating in space. They have literally become space. They're like little galaxies full of stars and full of sundust, full of this pink line
Emma,
of
I want
energy.
to put we'll come to this later, but I just want to remind ourselves to come back. We talked about things that carry from one book to another.
Yes.
Something very similar in fireworks. So
And in Every Monday Mabel, the pink in Every Monday Mabel works as energy.
Right.
In Every Monday Mabel. So it's fascinating. It really is a recurring theme this year. Eventually, they hear mom whistling through the hills, calling them home. And they sit for a little bit longer with this, having been out in space so close to the sun. They're right here at the center of the energy. The giver of life twirls and spits sun flares. Sunspots shift as if to speak. I mean, it's very cosmic. It's almost psychedelic in feel here at this point. They are out in space. They are out right at the center of the sun, and from there they hear mom's whistle, and they're called for home. And when they return home, they are changed. And the way in which they're changed is that they're bringing sundust back with them. That sundust is now inside them. They have internalized it and it's coming back. He literally says, we are changed, and sundust spits from our fingertips. So, the sundust that has been outside of them up until this point that they've been chasing, they've now internalized, and it's now coming out of them as a kind of a life spirit. With the sun's power in our hands, we could do anything, is the implication. But mom whistles again, so it'll have to wait until tomorrow. And we come back to the realities, the harsh realities of planet Earth and of this community, where the rock wall ends and the desert begins. So it's really a journey of the imagination, a journey of celebration of home, a journey of transformation within routine, within the familiar. And and I think it's particularly interesting because it is, coming from an author illustrator who is making his debut as a picture book author illustrator with this book. I read a little bit about his process, about his background with the book, and it was interesting to learn that he never took a class, an art class or a writing class, or a course. He just was drawn to he was a fan of comic books as a kid. He was a comic book, creator and doodler, and that was his beginning. He is one of the very lucky few. This used to be more of a thing in children's publishing. It really isn't anymore, but he was one of the lucky few who got taken under the wing by an editor. So Namrata Tripathi at Kokila fell in love with his art. She was the one who brought him on board for the first book that kind of brought him into the public eye, which is My Pappy Has a Motorcycle, which he did not write, but he illustrated. And she was the one who encouraged him to try his hand at creating his own picture book, both writing and illustrating. So he really gives her a tremendous amount of credit for partnering with him and kind of bringing this book to life. And I think one other thing I learned from this book, which I found fascinating in reading the interview with him, he talks about shape language. And this is not a phrase I was familiar with. This is a phrase that
Shape or
comes from
shade?
shape.
Right.
Shape language apparently is now we're going to see it everywhere. It's a phrase that is used a lot in graphic novels and in comic books, and it refers to using squares, triangles, and circles to convey character. And so here he said, typically characters with square faces tend to be more balanced and more kind of down to earth, and round faces are more approachable. Triangular faces are edgier, that kind of thing. So he's got his two characters here. One has a square face and one has a triangle face. And that's very much part of their characterization in the story. And that was something new for me. I hadn't encountered that.
Yeah, that's interesting. The stylization of the characters, clearly they look like they have escaped the graphic novel and have jumped into the picture book.
They do. They very much do.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that about the
one spread that really spoke to me here was because you said that this is about home and about family, and so not less about family, but about home and your environment and how it impacts you.
Yeah.
And on this spread, it says, we spot specks of sundust hiding in the oldest nopal tree. It has scars, but still blooms bright and reminds us of Mom because she's tough and prickly too.
Yeah.
And I thought that was beautiful. And then those words are right above this rock that is, what's the Japanese term for
Oh yes, for the broken with the gold.
with the gold. And this is sort of, it feels like it's a call to that to some extent because the rock is chipped into pieces and that sundust energy is what is keeping it together.
Actually, is that a rock or is it a turtle? To me, I think
that was
that's
the
the turtle.
turtle.
Yeah.
Oh, it is a turtle. You're right.
Yeah,
wow.
he's walking,
That's
but he definitely has a feeling of that pottery technique, the broken pottery technique.
Yeah. And then with transformation, and this is where it's like a blend of reality and because
is this considered magical realism?
That's what I was going to say.
For sure.
I think this is like the first picture book I've seen that would absolutely fit into the magical realism realm.
Okay.
Go
right?
Kelly. Go Kelly.
And
well, I was asking, I wasn't sure. So.
Yeah,
no, for sure. But
absolutely
because
that.
here you see this caterpillar and then it turns into the butterfly. And of course we know
You have the panels.
This doesn't happen as fast as it's showing here.
Yeah.
But as it emerges, it gets more and more of the pink in it. And so there, again, the symbolism of the transformation, it's and the text, the last lines in the spread are, we see that change is okay.
Yeah.
And just as a little aside, this stuff isn't important, I don't think, to the book, but I love that this whatever rock that they saw from a distance is like a smiley face.
Yes.
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 You know?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I felt this book, as Julie felt a connection to our lake, having grown up in and around lakes and trees and hiking and all these things. I grew up in the desert part of Southern California. So this book just recalled to me that environment, and I just sort of loved we always see those you've probably seen on social media all the like Gen X, well, maybe not if it's not in your feed, but as a Gen X person, there's all the feeds about like, oh well, we would our mom told us to go out and play and to come back when the streetlights came on. They had no idea where we were, right? And this really felt like a throwback to that, because when we would go camping, or we would go, you would just go explore, and so I really loved this feeling of them going past the brick wall, which was sort of like going past civilization to see what else is out there. And we talked about this color pink, and Julie, you pointed out this caterpillar to butterfly scene, and it's lighter, the pink is lighter on the caterpillar, and then it goes through its transformation, and when it comes out, the pink is so much brighter and the purple is so much brighter. And the same happens with this book, as when climactic things happen in the book, more pink shows up. And it kind of connects that imagination, and here they are in the, like, we talk about getting back to nature, and it always seems like that's mountains and trees and whatnot, but these kids are getting back to nature in the desert, which I just loved. But again, the pink, so the hummingbird picks them up and starts flying into space, and another climactic moment where the pink plays such a huge part. And then at the main climax of the book, where they've been taken to the center of the sun, it's, basically the whole page is pink, which reminded me when we talked about Every Monday Mabel, and how the star of the show, when it got to that climax of the truck, everything's yellow, and how they use that color to really visually indicate the climax, as well as the words, which I just thought was so genius. And then as they get in the denouement, as they start heading back home, you see less and less pink, but they have taken it with them, so that getting back to nature has re-energized their imagination, and they're taking back that renewal with them, even though a lot of times the desert feels like it's
so
dead, and bare.
yeah.
And so
You see how
I
they're
love that.
outlined in it. They're contained within the pink.
Right. But
Yeah.
also, Kelly, you mentioned having grown up in a desert environment, but my daughter went to the University of Arizona in Tucson. And if you have never seen a sunset in Tucson, they are incredible, and there is a huge amount of pink in them. And Tucson is also surrounded by mountains and and so this spread really made me feel like that was them looking over. There are places in Tucson where you can look over the sunset from a distance, and it looks just like this. So it is magical realism, but I also think that there's as with anything that comes from your imagination, or there's a touch of reality there too,
The other thing I just wanted to point out is that, this thematically, the book is exploring boundaries between realism and fantasy, boundaries literally between the desert, and the more urban part of the sprawl out there. And in the book itself, the story begins on the end pages. So what happens on the end papers is there's this crack boom of energy pink energy. And that burst of Sundust lands on the title page. And it's on the title page where the kids make a decision to go out and see what it is. And so the story is actually breaking the boundaries of the book, is my point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Going beyond the
Yeah,
boundaries of the title
absolutely.
page.
Absolutely. So great job, Zeke Peña, and thank you, Coquila, for bringing this book to us. And I'm just glad that there are desert kids and Latinx kids that get to see this type of story, because I don't think there's a lot of them out there. So, all right, let's go on to our next book. This is the last honor book we're going to talk about, and it's Stalactite and Stalagmite, written and illustrated by Drew Beckmeyer. And this one was mine that I get to introduce to you. I really enjoyed this book. It was such we talk about, like, every Monday Mabel was a specific moment. Sundust is a specific afternoon and adventure. This book is the exact opposite. This book is about all of time. From the beginning of time until now. So this book covers a lot. And I have no idea how long he worked on this, but it's pretty genius. And again, it's a book that starts on the cover and starts on the end pages at literally the beginning of time. The earth settles, the volcanoes burp rocks, the first clouds form and drip the first raindrops onto the ground, and this is just the beginning. A water drop seeping through a cave picks up minerals and leaves them in a tiny pile when the water drips. After many, many drops, the little mineral pile may grow into 1 and 2 nubs called stalactite and stalagmite.
So this is another theme of all these books, is that they seem to start on the end pages and they use the title page. And so a lot of the story, you're into it by the time you get to that first spread.
Yeah, which is, I think, amazing to use all of that real estate.
Yeah.
And many of this books used all of the real estate, but I feel like Drew here used like every single piece of the of the real estate. And I'll show you what I mean. So we're talking about stalactites that start at the ceiling of a cave and form these points, and they drip down water to the stalagmite at the bottom. And as the water has the minerals that it's leaving behind up the top, and as they drip on the bottom, both of these little nubs are starting to grow. And so this is the very beginning of the book. And when I say he uses all of the real estate, you have the dialogue where they're talking back and forth to each other. Hello, nub down there. Hello, nub up there. You are dripping on my head. Does it feel good? Yes, it does. I think we'll get along just fine then. And that could be it, but we're looking out the mouth of the cave and we have volcanoes, we have water, we have other mountains. And then on the side here, before the page turn, is the drip, drip, drip. And what makes our stalactites and stalagmites grow? It's that drip, drip, drip. So we see that.
Kelly,
Yeah.
Kelly, something that I only just this second noticed, to your point of him using every single inch, look at the very bottom. It shows a timeline.
Yes, you're stealing my thunder, Katie.
But I ruined your point. Sorry. You didn't mention
As
it.
Katie just mentioned, there is even a timeline on the bottom of each page. So as we go through different periods, here they meet a...
I never noticed that until just now.
Trilobite. And you can see that the timeline starts at the far left of the page. And so the first one was way over to the left, and now we're a little farther in. This is a different period of time, a different era, if you will. And again, you can see sometimes you hear us talk about dialogue and talking heads. And one of the things that he does here really well is changing the color of the dialogue as to which, if the stalactite is talking or the stalagmite. And again, he uses that all over the page here. So, and we get this super close up of the trilobite. And then it kind of goes away. And what I think is so funny is, so they meet this creature and they're like, hey, who are you? Where did you come from? And the creature's like, oh, I have legs. I can walk. I crawled up from the water. And they're like, are there other things in the water? He talks a little bit about that. And then some time passes and they're like, hey, do you ever think that trilobite will come back? Well, it was a very long time ago. Oh, maybe he didn't like us. Don't be silly. We are very charming. And they are very charming. They're so fun
Yeah.
in this book. Charming and interesting. Charming and interesting and good looking. Don't forget good looking. Yeah, he probably just had a lot of underwater things to do. So, it's that creature's probably extinct. But we're taking a lighthearted view on it, and you can look out the mouth of the cave and you can see how the environment has changed, right? We still have that drip, 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 but now we have some blue sky. The clouds, the steam coming from the volcano isn't red and fiery anymore. It's this white steam. The water is formed into a lake. So we're heading through time, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because we have lots to talk about. I loved this page. The Triceratops comes in. And he has a big voice, so his dialogue is very large. Hello? And the nubs have grown, so they're like, good morning, medium-sized cave nub. Good morning, other medium-sized cave nub. So they have these really cute personalities. Again, you can see the timeline at the bottom. We've reached the dinosaur period, but I just loved how he illustrated this Triceratops. It kind of blends in with the cave, so it would be kind of fun to show kids and see if they can find it, the way that it blends in. And then the Triceratops looks out the front of the cave. Wait, look at those dazzling lights flying across the sky. And some of us know what that means. So, and then it cuts to, of course, the meteors hit, and they're talking to each other about all these things. And through all of this, stalactite and stalagmite are still there, and they're still growing. So they've seen so much. And of course, I can't not mention the giant ground sloth, because that's amazing. And again, now our timeline is on the other side of the book, and we still have our drip, drip, drip. So we're still growing. And there's a bat, and they talk to the bat. Oh, and I have to say this is funny. Remember that giant ground sloth who loved to lick us? The one right next to me. And if you look right next to him, it's the skeleton of the giant ground sloth. Sorry. It's a little dark,
So
but
funny.
honestly, it's hilarious.
It is funny.
Yeah.
And then the bat hangs upside down, and the dialogue not only matches the color of the bat, but the dialogue is upside down. So again, we talked about this a lot with Corey Tabor, right? In other Caldecott discussions, where he really uses the book itself, so you could turn it upside down to see what the bat is saying. So he really uses the design of the book to help with that. And then a human comes into the cave, and they ask each other, if you had arms, what would you draw? Because this human is drawing cave drawings, and which are things that, you see in history. And stalagmite is, well, you would need very long arms to draw that, because stalactite has listed all of these things he would talk about. I would draw the infinite universe throughout time, and which is funny because this book is about time. They've seen all of time.
It's very bad.
And again, we have drip, drip, drip. And then, and this one, this one got me a little bit. So we're getting closer to our particular time, and you can see the timeline. We're about the middle of the right page there. So we're getting closer to the end, and stalactite says, we're getting closer together. And stalagmite says, it's nice not to have to yell anymore. And then he says, shh, a miner is coming. And the miner trips over stalagmite. Ouch, 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 drip, drip, drip. And we see the flame, we see him trip. We don't really know what happens to him. And then we turn the page. And we have more humans in the cave. And our stalactite and stalagmite are almost touching. And the humans are here, and they say, and if you look over here, you'll see a stalactite and a stalagmite. That might have been that have been inching closer and closer together for millions of years, one tiny drip at a time. What happens when they touch? They will merge and become something new. And then we flip the page, And the tour guide says, come down this way and I'll show you the tools and belongings of a miner who got stuck down here.
Because he broke his flame. He broke his lantern.
Right.
So funny.
And then, we have them talking to each other. And what happens when we get together? What will we be? What will happen? And again, we look out the cave and it's modern time and they're about to touch. And again, we have that pink. That pink comes back into play, our favorite color for 2026. And then of course they come together. And then I think the back matter on this is genius as well. And they form, spoiler alert, they form a column. They become a new thing. So they come together. And then we have the drip and other ones are going to start. We have another stalactite and stalagmite here that are going to come together after millions of years. So, and again, using all of the real estate, there's some fantastic back matter about these different periods of times and the different animals that he's referred to in here. And the full illustrated timeline has all come together at the bottom of the back matter here, which again is just genius. And because Drew doesn't leave any space, he uses every single piece of this property he has. We have the visual timeline as well, not just that little thing at the bottom. He's done a full-on illustrated timeline as the last.
And he even looks into the
end
future
papers.
at the
Yes.
end.
Yeah.
There's definitely
Aliens.
like going past our time.
Yeah,
even.
that's true. That's a good point.
In this
So
spread
interesting.
right
One
here.
of the things that I think is the most astonishing about this book is that he tells the history of the Earth in dialogue only.
Yes.
There isn't one piece of narrative text in this entire, other than drip, drip, drip.
Mhm.
There isn't a single piece of narrative in this entire book. It is all dialogue, and it's not even attributed dialogue. It's just script style dialogue only.
Right.
And we can distinguish it by where it's positioned on this page and what color it is. And what's so moving to me is that this might appear to be a book about evolution, but it's actually a book about relationship.
Yeah.
And what happens is when they touch, the
They
dialogue
become one.
stops.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Once they start touching, there are 2 pages of no dialogue whatsoever because they don't need dialogue anymore. They've communed and they've
Right.
become one thing. And I was really moved by the marginalian Maria Popova. She did a piece on this book, and she says, despite our culture's bias for the drama of cataclysm, the violent heartbreaks, the notion of falling in love, implying a sudden tripping along the path of life, the most profound of these motions of the soul are the work of gradualism. Their pace geologic, their velocity that of continents, so incremental as to be imperceptible until one day 2 people find themselves a sum greater than its parts, infinity. I mean, that's such a beautiful
Wow.
description of
Yeah.
what this book is actually about, of two individuals becoming one thing and changing their very nature and the course of history.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
talking about the illustration, he really leaned into mixed media, which I think you could see beautifully on the giant ground
Yeah.
sloth.
Yeah, a lot of it's
Also,
paper.
layers.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of, and to your point also, Emma, that we've been talking lately about having multiple hooks in your story. And so not only do you have the history of the earth, you have relationships, you have geology, you have there's so many different things that you could talk about in this book, and how the perspective changes even. We get close-ups and things in the background if you're paying attention. And again, we talked about how great art, I believe you're able to go back and see new things every time. And I mean, this is just a treasure trove of.
It is.
Right.
The other thing that was so fascinating to me is that he built the art in layers. It's a lot of cut paper, and the layers also are directly connected to the layers of drips that build the stalactite and the stalagmite, and the layers of what happens over time. And all of that it also makes it have a lot more depth. And the fact that we see this all from their perspective and that we are inside the cave and can see out. So it becomes a larger piece. If we only were in the cave, it might feel actually a little claustrophobic. We went on a vacation once, and we went on a cave tour, and we had to hike and hike and hike, and we get there, it was a real cave, like it wasn't just like a little indentation, it was a cave. And at one point, the guy who was leading us said, I'm going to turn off the light and we will have total darkness. And I've never been in total. It was so disorienting and scary, and we all had to like make sure that we were okay where we were standing and holding on to something or whatever. I'm like, okay, done, turn it on. Turn on the light. But and seeing the stalactites and the stalagmites, all I thought of the entire time I'm reading this book was seeing that in real life. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance to go.
The other thing that this book does so well, so you'll hear us talk about quote unquote rules, of picture books. So one is no talking heads.
Right.
And literally we have talking heads that are getting closer. And also that it's a challenge, I'm sure, when you sit down and think about writing and illustrating this book, because the stalactite and the stalagmite can't move technically.
Right.
And so the way that Drew Beckmeyer shifts things around to look at everything from different angles is so brilliant to help us avoid feeling like we're just sitting there watching these two talk and come closer together.
Watching the drip, drip, drip.
The drip, drip, drip. And of course, I love the humor in this book that adds another whole layer, right? Because it's not boring at all. And what you said about the dinosaur, Kelly, you actually skipped one of, I know we can't cover the whole book.
I didn't have.
You skipped one of my favorite spreads where it's like,
Yeah.
because the dinosaur, the Triceratops, has come into the cave, and now we're looking right at it, and it's giant. And then the font is really big, and it says, "Don't be afraid. It's just that my voice is very loud because that's like, that just cracks me up." And then it goes on to, "I am a Triceratops. A what? A dinosaur." And then turn the page.
Right.
And that's where he sees, oh, look, it's like squirrel. Look at those beautiful lights.
And he's already done.
Right. We already know that. And it's very rare and I know this is about the text, but it's very rare to see straight up sarcasm in a picture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And this one does it right here on the next spread. He says, remember those beautiful meteors? You mean the ones that crashed and turned the sky black? Yeah. The meteors that hit right before the clouds started raining acid and melting all the plants. Yeah. The ones that fell right before all the dinosaurs disappeared because plants couldn't grow and they had nothing to eat. Those meteors. Yeah, remember how pretty they were? And so one is like really just talking in this very sarcastic voice. And yes, one of the things that we talked about just recently in the founder session about ensemble casts, which this is, by the way, that the scaffolding is with the text being different colors and so on. And I think that's one way that it helps achieve this all dialogue story. And the genius way,
dialogue is moving it forward.
Right, exactly. But the genius way that the illustration layer shows the passage of time, like we have the spread with the ground sloth, and then the next one is, the skeleton, and that tells us how, like, a lot of time
how long it's
passed.
Yeah,
right.
Also, the picture of the miner saying "ouch, ouch, ouch."
Right.
Then it's drip.
All three of them saying "ouch."
Right.
Each one of them has an ouch.
And then I just have to point out the timeline when the humans in the cave and they're like, his little illustration of that time is, oh, we have fire, hooray! It's like they're all jumping for joy that they have fire.
Right,
I
right.
mean,
That
I think
cracked
Drew
me up.
Beckmeyer is somebody I would like to hang out with. I imagine he's a pretty funny guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't notice the timeline. This is one
I
of
know,
those
me neither.
where you just,
This book was very evocative of a Mac Barnett, John Klassen book to me. And so, of course, I
Yeah.
was, not surprised to find them blurbing the book on the
Right.
back.
right.
Clearly, they're friends.
Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, amazing.
And then, of course, it has an undie too, and we go
Yeah.
from the
where we finally see what the poor miner left behind.
right. We see farther into the cave, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
This is a classic flat arc too. It's they just these two main characters, these dual protagonists, just sit there and the world evolves around them.
Right. Yep, that's true. So
anyway, I
love this
thoroughly
book.
enjoyed this book, and
Yeah.
I highly suggest checking out, especially if you have a kid who's into dinosaurs or or just like rocks. I know a lot of kids are into rocks.
Yeah.
There's just so much visually to take in here that I if you have a kid who likes all those details and things, they're gonna love this book. So
I just want to point out one last thing before we move on.
Yes, please.
It's a very tall, long book, which matches what happens with these guys. The structure of the book, it's not a horizontal wide book.
yeah.
And it uses that for a reason.
Yep.
All right.
I'll just say my favorite line in the book is, maybe becoming the us is where our story really starts. And even though that's specific to the stalactite and the stalagmite, it's really also specific to our civilization, right? At what point did we become us? At what point did the earth become the earth? We're looking at the whole thing. At what point does our story start?
Wow. Yeah.
Lovely. All right, let's get to our winner, and that is Julie picked this
Fireworks.
a long time ago.
I
Fireworks.
did.
So Julie, tell us all about
I'm
it.
certainly not in any way super prescient though, because what's interesting is that I heard Betsy Bird talk after the Caldecotts. I think it was on Instagram or something, and I can't remember who she was talking with, but what she said was, in all of the mock Caldecotts and all of the conversations, people were pretty unanimous that Fireworks was going to be the winner. And that doesn't happen very often, you know.
Right.
Well, but you hadn't read all that and then said, I think it's going to win. Like you saw this book, I think, at the library or something. And we're like, oh my gosh, have you seen this book? I think this is going to win the Caldecott.
I did. I saw it. I read something about it in June or whatever, because it came out, of course, in the summer, right before summer. And I took it out from the library and I had to buy it because I loved it so much. Matthew Burgess is a poet. And so the text of this book is brilliant. And Cátia Chien is one of my favorite illustrators. And for those of you who may not have seen it, I have to put in a small plug for Derek Wilder's The Longest Let's Go Boy, which she also illustrated. So I feel like I've been waiting for her to win something huge because she's so incredible. The other thing is, when I was a kid, I loved the 4th of July. It was probably second only to Christmas in terms of what I looked forward to. I just felt like, first of all, summer is so short in Michigan, and the days are really long. So I got to stay up late, because it wouldn't get dark until like 10 o'clock. And I was very skeptical that a picture book could really capture the magic of that feeling. And again, I just want to emphasize being inside a childness of these picture books. It's very different, even though I still love Fireworks, it's very different from when you go and you're a kid and it's something that happens to you once a year. Pink. These are the end papers, which are just bright, hot pink. And one thing all of these books have done so well is giving us very important information about the story before it even starts. So on the title page here, you see this upturned box of takeout and pigeons eating from that.
Chinese takeout.
Chinese
Maybe
takeout.
that's
And so
important.
this tells us that this is not a rural setting. The book is not going to be in a rural setting, right? And again, the birds. Here's one of
Like
those
pigeons, right?
pigeons flying.
Pigeons.
And
And the kids are looking out what appears to be like the perspective is you're looking up at this tall building and the kids are
right.
looking out
And
this
the
window.
tall building becomes important too.
Yeah, and there's
These
buildings
are
in
all
the background.
clues, and you can all these are all
Oh,
clues
there's even
that
scaffolding up here. Or
yeah.
anyway, sorry.
And again, Kelly, you talked earlier about like loose lines. And here we have more of the color yellow, a lot of happiness, this sweet spread that it opens again, older sibling, younger sibling.
Mhm.
In the summer, the sun rises between buildings on our block to greet us at breakfast. And look at how the table is like a sun rising.
And the yellow.
And you see the Chinese takeout that we saw earlier, these are Asian children, Asian American children who are sitting with chopsticks and eating breakfast. And you see an older woman in the background smiling at them, looking like a grandmother figure.
Well, and breakfast appears to be rice and
Yeah.
dumplings, and it's maybe.
Right. And so this is a book where I really feel like you can't separate the art from the text. That's how integrated they are, literally. So yeah, it beats warmer and brighter when we venture out across the steamy sidewalks. And the illustrations here show the steaminess. It's almost like you can't quite see. It's blurred because it's so hot, right? The figures blend right into the background. Even though you can see the two children more clearly in the foreground, everything else is kind of blurred out. You can just sort of make out this dog right here. And if you look closely, you can see that its tongue is hanging out. And again, this is probably a Chinatown, I'm thinking, setting because of the red lanterns at the top of the page. So, and when you turn the page, by noon, it gets so hot that the fire hydrant springs a leak, and we do what all kids do. And look at the beads of sweat that are dripping from, again, these figures that are very much blended so much that you can't really make out their features, but you have these bright drops of sweat coming down, showing how hot it is. And that also mimics a little bit the water that is starting to spring from the fire hydrant. And the background here, again with the yellow, but also the bright white it just reminds me a little bit of Hot Dog, which was the Caldecott
I
winner.
was just thinking that.
A
I
couple
felt
the heat of the city.
years ago, just the depiction of the heat, and then look at the relief. And Cátia Chien used multiple media for this. So there's pastels and watercolors and crayon even. So it's interesting to try when you're looking at these illustrations to try to figure out which medium is she using where. And of course they go on.
And we have the
Onomatopoeia.
again.
Onomatopoeia is huge in this book.
Everywhere
Yeah,
in this book.
in this book, and in several of the ones that we've talked about. But what I love about this spread in particular is that even if it wasn't in this book, this is an illustration of whoop wee woohoo. Like
Yeah.
you could take this illustration out of context and this all still makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the day goes on, and there's a spread here that says salsa music slips through the wide open windows. And I love that it's very specifically salsa music. This is a diverse neighborhood. And we see the music represented in this, and here you can see the crayon, right?
I love this onomatopoeia. Shuka, shuka,
Yeah.
shuka, shuka, wah, wah, wah.
Right.
Yes.
So we see the onomatopoeia for the music, and this almost looks here like a figure dancing. Whoops,
Yeah.
over here. But it's abstract, right? It's representational. And because all the bright colors here are kind of foreshadowing the fireworks, I think. The music, the joy in the community. And then this is where the tall building becomes important. Later, when the sun sneaks behind the tallest skyscraper, yellow squares appear, and grandma's cooking, and you get hiss, sizzle, snap. You can just hear the food in that pan, and it's also contributing to the heat. And you see this pink, obviously the sun is going down, but it's still very, very warm. All right. Now, it is I can't even imagine how hard it is to both write and illustrate the magic that happens in watching fireworks. But here are the two children sitting on top of the roof of their very tall building. We get the birds back. So we know that they're like up in the sky, right? And the text is placed on the page so that it's up, up, up. The text is moving up.
This is the one page where I wondered why they didn't put the text that is at the top on the bottom, so that you literally moved up with your
Moved up. Yeah, I
Sure.
wondered that too. I just thought that. Like, that's sort of strange. And to the silver tar rooftop, still soft from the day's sun, and we wait for the first. And how incredible is that of teasing the page turn? The first pop in huge letters, a comet streaking across the sky bursts into a flower of fire. The first. And the pink is used in the text for the onomatopoeia, pop and burst. And it's just incredible. Look at this. Pop, 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 And to me,
This is scratch art.
Yeah,
She
to
used
me,
scratch art.
this felt reminiscent though of bird wings. Maybe it's just me, but it really felt like bird. It look at the difference. And for those of you listening on the podcast, you need to pick up the book and look at the difference between the art of the first pop and the next page where it's multiple pops. So different that, she could have just continued, but she's showing like the stages of fireworks. Swish, zing, tizzle, ting, poof. Because
you get the real sense of the difference between the one firework that goes explodes and fountains down versus the pop, 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 pop,
and then the little sizzling that happens when
as it goes out, and everybody's seen fireworks pretty much. So this is so perfect.
So here we get boom, ba boom, 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 right? So we're building, echoing again and again, shooting up, and we turn the page. It's, you guys, look at these two faces.
Yeah.
Is it over? Wait, a lull before. Oh my gosh. They're both looking.
There's always a lull too.
I don't even think I'm going to be able to fit this. Look
gatefold.
at that. I mean,
Wow.
you cannot look. What is this? A double gatefold? It's like 4 panels all together.
And it's a vertical gatefold
vertical
instead of a
gatefold.
horizontal.
Right.
So it says the words are kaboom, kaboom, kaboom.
Hmm.
And you see all these different types of fireworks together. And the kids down here with their arms in the air, like
Mhm.
this is the finale. And when I saw this spread, this is what I was like, that this book has to win. It just has to. Look at that.
Mhm.
But it does, and you think, okay, there's the finale, but then it even continues the shh, 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 shh. You know, the end of the fireworks where everything's fading, but there's still smoke in the air.
The
And
dialogue on this page is phenomenal.
I don't see the dialogue.
Not the dialogue, I'm sorry, the words, the
Text.
text, the story, the narrative,
Right.
the words.
Fireworks shimmer over the city before fading into ghosts, and you can see how the smoke that she's made it look like. And in the air, the sharp charcoal sniff of 1,000 matches extinguished. A breeze, a shiver, hands, hugs. We go down, 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 one step at a time. So now they're coming down from the building and they get ready for bed. What I love about this spread is, again, it's showing their re-entry into normal life after they've just had this incredible experience. But, and this illustration nods to when their faces were together looking like, is that the end when they were waiting for the finale? Now the two of them are in bed. To be tucked in with summer on our skin, listening to the gentlest kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. And these are now small and equal, and it feels like a heartbeat. It sounds like a heartbeat here instead of a big giant kaboom. Within, they have this. And this is where I wanted, yes, Kelly, thank you. Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting that the end of Sundust, the kids
Yeah.
are showing that this experience has changed them with the stars and the thread of Sundust going through them. And then here in
So
the winter.
for those of you listening on the podcast, these are negative images of the kids. So the kids are in silhouette and it's a solid background behind them. And sundust, it's white behind them, and fireworks, it's black behind them. And then inside their silhouettes in fireworks, it's like they're filled with all of the little fireworks sparkling inside of them. And in Sundust, it's that space along with the bright pink we talked about that signals imagination and nature is all inside of them. So it's indicating to our kids that the magic is inside of them, that they inhabit the magic.
Right.
It's not just outside.
It's indicative of the transformation that
Yes.
happens.
Yes.
It's as if their photons have been illuminated by
Yes.
the
Oh, that's a
Right?
way of putting it. Yeah.
And I mean, I could not love this book anymore. Whenever it happens that I get a book out of the library and then I have to buy it because I can't be parted with it. That's what happened here. This book, it's
brilliant.
incredible, and I'm so happy. This definitely was my pick for the the gold medal, and it got it.
All right, Julie, thank you for sharing this beautiful book. Congratulations to Cátia Chien and Matthew Burgess. This was a perfect pairing of text and art, and we're just so excited for you. If you haven't seen this book, we will have a link to it in the Picture Book Summit bookshop.org, and we'll have links in the show notes or under this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Congratulations to all of the winners, and we will see you in the next video on YouTube or in the next podcast. Bye, everybody.
Bye.